What's up, everyone? This is Niyi Adewale, host of the EkaboHome Financial Freedom Mastermind Group. This group meets virtually every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and the members of this group are committed to achieving financial freedom well before the traditional retirement age. So in this podcast, you are going to get VIP access to the conversations we have about different forms of investment and creative ways to get your dollars working harder for you than you originally worked to obtain those dollars. I am pumped to have Jason and Nguyen join us. And Jason is actually an investor based out of the Virginia area, DC, who has been in real estate investing for just under a decade, actually got his start in the restaurant industry, switched over to being a full-time realtor and investor in the Virginia and Georgia area. And Jason has done everything from long distance fix and flips to BRRRR deals to long-term rentals, short-term rentals, both at a distance and close to home. And so excited to have you here, Jason. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. And yeah, I'm excited to be able to share everything I know so far, everything I have in the past, so that way, people can maybe do the same thing or better than me.
Hey, come on now. We got to pass the torch and keep the knowledge coming. And truly, from the conversations that we've had offline, I've truly taken a lot and learned and taken notes. And there's things that I'm implementing on a day-to-day from you. And I'm happy that the listeners are going to get those same takeaways. And so to start this off, I really want to take it back before you got into the real estate investing to understand, what were you doing prior to real estate?
Well, I was in college back in the day. Actually, I got into real estate investing the very first, before I got into the restaurant industry. So I purchased a little townhouse near a university that I was at. And then I figured out that the student dormitory situation wasn't good at all, and it paid more than, what it's supposed to be. So I purchased a little townhouse, and then I let people come in, rent out room by room, and I was making money at a time. So after my first investment property, I jumped into a restaurant industry. So I purchased this small restaurant in a little Vietnamese town, Vietnamese community. And I was working 12 hours a day, man. I was burned. I thought that was an easy cash flow. The margin was great, but then after a few years, and I was like, oh man, I don't have any time left. I literally spent all the holidays, 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. at the restaurant, Monday through Sunday. I literally had no time to myself. So I was like, oh man, it's time to, let it go, and then, start building something that will generate passive income. Even if you don't work, it still make money for you. So that was something that I was trying to build after the restaurant life.
Absolutely. And what you mentioned just now is a true insight, right? Because, I talk to others that work in the restaurant industry, and, typically it's those that are doing more hourly work, not the owners. So as an owner, you said you were working like 12-hour days?
12 hours a day, man. Because I was a manager. People call off all the time. I had a restaurant, I had 9 employees. And, people come in and, hey, I can't make it today, all kinds of excuses. And I had to fill in that gap. I got to be the guy who go back there, wash the dishes, take the trash out, do all this kind of stuff. Everything that if we're missing somebody at a restaurant, I'm the owner. I had to fill that gap up.
Absolutely.
And it was just literally burning, man. It's crazy. You know how the restaurant life is, especially at the noontime, where all the customers come in, and then, we gotta, the whole restaurant was like in a rush,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're like, oh my God, we don't know what we're doing over here. So I was literally burned. I was literally burned, man. 12 hours a day.
And I know, just from our conversations before, how that helped to push you more into the real estate space. But what I didn't know is that you purchased a property before even getting into the restaurant industry. So can you tell us a little bit more about this townhome? What gave you the courage to, while in college, go purchase this townhome and then the foresight to rent out rooms? And what did that look like?
Well, it's kind of like, before I was, ever get into this whole real estate or restaurant business kind of thing. I was always just gonna get my degree, graduate it, go work 9 to 5, make the money, and that's it. But then when I first purchased my very first home a couple of years ago, I met this realtor, and he basically told me the whole idea about passive income, you know, like passive income, equity, all that kinds of thing. I've never heard of, nobody has ever told me about that before. So I was like, okay, if that's the case, and this is something that I can do as a side hobby. While I was in college, I figured out the little student dorming situation, people complaining about all the time. So I was like, oh, how about purchase a little townhouse? It has all kinds of, all the rooms so people get their own privacy. They rent out for the same price or a little bit cheaper than that. And I purchased a home, I furnished the common areas, and I rented out. And I was making about $900 to $1,000 cash flow per month, and that was dope, man, for college students.
Yeah. And so you were making that over the mortgage, like you were living for free?
Yeah, no, that was my second home, man.
Okay.
I got my own house. I lived at my house. I was paying mortgage and all that stuff, but the investment property, that was my second home. So I let the tenants live in there, and they just paying the mortgage and everything. I was making $1,000 cash flow per month. Use that to pay for my personal home mortgage. It doesn't
Nice.
cover the entire mortgage, but it helps a little bit.
Yeah, more than a little bit, man. That's significant. That's significant. And I guess just a couple digging in a little bit, because I've heard of individuals being able to do this with homes and kind of boosting your cash flow. But then
Mhm.
I think about, a headache factor versus the dollars. Did you ever run into any issues with, roommate vibes or anything like that?
No, man, all the time. I'll tell you a funny story. I didn't know that was the case when I put these people in the same house. Four different people, four different personalities. So they got into an argument, and I literally had to go over there every week for a home meeting, or whatever people want to call it, but kind of like a home meeting. We sit down, and we're all adults. We sit down, we talk about all kinds of issues, and I was literally a judge there. And then I create a house rule over time so people can follow it. And the biggest issues was the parking situation, because the townhouse, you have two reserve parking, and everybody else has to literally go park on the street. So, but you have four people in the house, so that create a problem. So I kind of like, okay, so you live in this bedroom, you can park here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, that sort of thing. And then I kind of assign a parking space for them. And then those who don't have the assigned parking can go park on the streets. That kind of like create a little fair game for everybody.
No, that is that is fair. And this is the side that a lot of people don't see, right? Is kind of the work that goes behind it. They hear, hey, $1,000 cash flow, I'm going to do this, but you got to understand it does take a little bit of work, and you may have to be the counselor and try to put the rules down for the house as well.
Yeah, people bid for parking too. They say, hey, Jason, I'll pay you $100 to buy this parking so people can't park in my space anymore. Other folks say, hey, I'll pay you 150. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Not
No,
fair for everybody, though.
that'd be a whole nother issue, man. There'd be major fights. But no,
Yeah.
this is a cool entry kind of into the passive income space. And
Mhm.
I know for many years you stuck with that job that we talked about before, and kind of owning that restaurant and trying to build up investments. While you were still within the restaurant, how many investments were you able to build up? What were you buying?
Oh no, while I was in the restaurant, right? So I owned that property, and I started to buy some more townhouses. So I was able to build up to 11 townhouses here in Northern Virginia.
Nice.
Yeah, and then after that, then I started to invest out of states.
Okay. And
Yeah.
and what drove you to invest out of state, and what market did you choose, and kind of why?
At first, I was investing in Houston, Texas. And then because I knew some people over there, I went by and then I partnered up with the people that actually live in Houston. So we did a lot of deals. We bought multi-families, we fix it up, we put tenants in there, and then we sell it. And then that makes a lot of profit. Everything went super smooth. We flipped like 5 to 6 houses in Houston. Everything went super smooth, never had any problem until I moved to Atlanta. Until I moved everything to Atlanta. Then the fun part starts.
Yeah.
I can tell you a whole lot of story in Atlanta, man. But after Houston, then I started to put my investment into the Atlanta market because Atlanta was one of the top 10 market for real estate boom back a couple of years ago. So and then I found the quad duplex, and that was a good deal. And then that was my first investment property in Atlanta.
Absolutely. And Jason, I can't skip over the fact that you were able to build up 11 units while you were still working crazy amount of hours to help you transition out of this. And we're going to talk about that. But first, I want to speak to a little bit of your criteria. When you're going out and buying these homes, these were long-term rentals, correct?
Yeah, long-term rental.
So how and what tips do you have for running numbers and identifying like, hey, this is going to be a deal that works? How do you analyze these?
So when I purchase any investment properties, there are four things that I look at. Number one is the cash flow. This home is it cash flow well? If something happened, is it will it able to cover the expenses, that sort of things. Number two is appreciation. How's the appreciation look like in the market and that sort of things. Number three is people pay down my loan balance over time. How much are they gonna pay in 12 months? And then I multiply that by the year that I'll be holding. And the number four is gonna be the tax benefits. Yeah, what kind of tax benefit I'll get towards the end of the year. So those four things combined is going to make, if the number looks good, then, I got into the deal.
I love it. I love it. And one of the things that you've successfully done that a lot of people want to do, right? That are investing, they're like, hey, I can't wait to get out of my W-2 or whatever job I'm working, but you actually have a success story of being able to successfully make it out of your previous role and fully into real estate. And you did that through the investing as well as becoming a realtor. But do you mind speaking through just your mindset and, really what that looked like that first month and year of transition?
Well, it was great, man. Before it was everything is really tight. But I actually before I purchased real estate, it was tight because the whole thing would just rely on the restaurant and that sort of thing. But then when I started to build everything and I get the cash flow and it offset all my living expenses, it's like you just keep building it. You make it bigger and better and you don't have to worry about expenses anymore. Like I can freely go out there and pretty much buy whatever I want.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Like I don't have to worry about saving this amount of money for the next trip or that sort of things. Because I've heard people say that, hey, it's easier to make $10,000 than save $10,000. So at that point I just keep building it up every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's some parallels to your story as well. Earlier, you mentioned that when you were buying that first house, that first investment house, that a realtor helped coach you up and tell you, like, hey, this is what passive income is and what it could do for you over time. And
Mhm.
now, come full circle as a realtor, I know that you do a little bit of the same for you community. Do you mind sharing kind of how you work that and kind of help others get into the game?
Yeah, I really appreciate, the realtor that got me into this whole thing. He later became my broker. I got my real estate license, I joined his firm and he taught me a lot of stuff. So now that I got to the point where I'm at right now, and I kind of want to give back to the youth, especially the college students that they kind of on the edge of whether they're going to be renting or buying, whether or not they're going to be what kind of life they're going to be doing after college, And, that's one of the problems that I see nowadays, because a lot of them, they don't even know what they're doing. They don't know why they're going to college at all. Like why are you going to college when you don't know what you're doing? So I usually go to universities and I talk to college students and their friends and all that people. I kind of like, hey, are you going to be, I taught them how to house hack pretty much. Like you buy a house, you live in one of the bedrooms, and then you rent out the rest of the room in your house. You pretty much live mortgage free. If you do that. And then after a few years, your equity is going to build up and you can cash out, refinance, get that money, put it in another investment properties. And then you just keep building that up throughout the years. Then when they have this certain amount of cash, they can start it to, flip, BRRRR, all that kind of things, build their empire from there.
And
Because if
Jason,
it's going to be renting, then, all the money goes towards the landlord's pocket.
absolutely. And Jason, I love that so much because you did come full circle and you are helping coach the next generation. And to your point, I didn't even really know kind of going to college. The reason I went was that I thankfully got, some football money. And so I was like, hey, I'll go. But a lot of people go to college and they're paying exorbitant amounts of money for a degree that they're not going to use, right? And at the end of the day, in order to make it, in this world, you do have to bring significant value. And you don't need a college degree necessarily to do that. Now, some people, if you want to be a doctor, et cetera, please go to college. We need that. But for other professions, it's not necessarily needed.
Yeah, I was telling a lot of them that me personally, I care about how many percent my equity gain per year, not how many money I make per month. And that's significant, because right now, I own about, $6 million worth of real estate. Imagine 10% gain from a 6 million, $600,000 already. Versus, working 9 to 5, making $100,000 per year after all the expenses, you know, after all the expense and tax and all that stuff. I mean, it's really a matter of, saving up for 10 years and you use that to buy a car and then it all go drained.
Yeah, quickly. And to that point, there's a couple things that we talked about in the lead up to this, and I want to dive into them now. I really want to understand kind of where you were coming from with this. One of them that you sort of alluded to was being able to drive or get a car for free. Would you mind talking through what you mean by that?
Oh yeah, I had a Tesla, right? And my Tesla, I purchased that last year for $75,000. And I was thinking about this, man. If I just pay $75,000 to Tesla, I get a car. And the car goes down in value as I drive. It gets older and older, right? And later when you sell, you won't get as much money back. Instead, I use $75,000 as a down payment to buy a townhouse. I pull a loan out of a Tesla because Tesla allow you to put 0% down. I literally purchased that at $100 because they need $100 deposit. So yeah, I pull a loan out of a Tesla. I rent it out, same model. I rent out all the rooms and furnish the common place and all that stuff. I was making about $900 to $1,000 cash flow. I used that to pay for the Tesla's car payment. After 5 years, my car paid off, my home value goes up. I make money both ways.
I love it. I love it. And Jason, I wish we were talking last year, man, because I picked up a Tesla last year too. And I did the opposite. I paid the cash. And now I'm kicking myself. I'm like, man, I should have done what Jason did. But that makes a lot of sense to be able to go get an asset that's going to help pay for your liability. I mean, this is, a lot of people have read that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. This is what he was coaching right there. I love that you're putting it into action.
Oh yeah, I love that book. I read it and then kind of give me a little pump. It's like, oh, this is exactly what I was thinking in my mind right now. And this guy just kind of like put everything together here.
Yeah. And one of the other things that we talked about, Jason, is the fact that you've been able to build this rental empire, right? Over a short period of time, not that many years, you've built up a significant number of units and equity and wealth. And you mentioned that you like using something called the Bur Method. Do you mind explaining what the Bur Method is and how you've used that to help accelerate your portfolio?
Oh yeah, the Bur Method is actually a great method. I think anybody can apply this to their investment models. So pretty much, for example, I'll just use $100,000 so that way we're on the same tracks. For example, what I did was I identified a market, right? I'm gonna look for distressed properties that is gonna worth $100,000 after repair. So we call that an ARV, after repair value. So I will pay no more than 70% of that property of the ARV to get the house. So I will pay no more than $70,000 to purchase that house. And after that, I'm going to determine the cost to repair this property. For example, $20,000 to repair this property to bring it up to $100,000 ARV, right? So I would take that, the $70,000, I minus $20,000. That's my new max purchase price. I'll pay no more than $50,000 to purchase this home. So after I purchased it for $50,000, I put $20,000 out to repair this property. Now it's worth $100,000. The bank is going to lend me $70,000. I get all my money back to reinvest somewhere else. And I rent it out either short term or long term. And now I'm kind of building my short term portfolio. So pretty sure my next deals could be short term.
I love it. I love it. And to that point, this is an incredible way to recycle the same money because any investor that knows, especially those that are getting started, one of the hardest things you have to come up with is that capital and the down payment. And so if you're able to use that down payment, recycle it, pull it out, and use it for another project, it's only going to help you accelerate your growth. So that's incredible.
Yeah, and it's just gonna keep repeat, and then I was telling people like, hey, you can buy 100 property with this amount of money. Nobody trusts me until I actually explain, how it works, and it actually works.
Absolutely. And that's the key. Being able to see you doing it and witness it is pretty incredible. And I know one of the things that you've been doing successfully as well, which I've struggled with in the past, but you've been doing flips at a distance, like thousands of miles away, managing crews and kind of doing flips at a distance. Do you have any tips for doing that successfully? And kind of, can you explain how you've been able to do that?
Yeah. So first of all, I have to, get a source of wholesalers, right? I had to go to Atlanta and meet all kinds of people, and then pretty much build my own team. So from wholesalers, contractors, realtors, and so I pretty much bring a property from wholesale to retail. So I got to meet all these people and kind of like, create, make a team out of it, get everybody to know each other. And then if there's a deal, I'll pick it up. I'll send a contractor. I send multiple contractor in, and then kind of like give me an estimate on, what they're going to be doing. And I'll read through everyone's estimate and see exactly what's wrong with this property. And sometimes I kind of send a third party inspector down there too, because, contractors, sometimes they don't see the things that inspector sees. So I get all their reports, I reviews all of them. And then, if it's a good deal, I'll take it. I'll take it under contract. If not, then I'll pass it on. And then once I get the property, I'll get the contractor in, and then I either have them take pictures for me and that sort of things every time they finish a certain part. And then I'll just fund them the money as it go through. And after that, it goes to the realtors. Realtors gonna put it up for sales. After they sell it, the money goes back to me.
I like it. I like
Yeah.
it. You make it sound simple. I know in practice it's definitely difficult, but
Well, it's definitely difficult. It sounds, because I want to make it sound, like so that way people can understand the process. But the actual part of it is really tough because sometimes, people overseas stuff that they can't see things that, there's gonna be a bigger issues down the road. Like, something that's foundation issues and, that sort of thing is gonna be bigger cost. And then we get into that part, and then a few months later you find out, hey, there's foundation issues. It's going to cost like $10,000-$20,000 to repair. That's going to wipe out all the profits.
true.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where if you're in the game long enough, you're going to get, one or two bad apples, but the overwhelming amount of good that you'll get if you're staying consistent and getting those properties under value and kind of putting them under contract, it outweighs the risk, right? And if you stick with it long enough, you can build a large portfolio.
Exactly.
And Jason, before we kick it to the group and kind of open it up, I wanted to ask a couple more questions. One, for the listeners and for those that are going to listen in the future, what would you want them to take away from this episode? What would be your call to action to anybody that's listening to this?
My call to action is, everyone should start investing their monies, little, a lot, it varies, but start investing, because if you start investing today, you're going to make money tomorrow. Because think about it, the rate of real estate development is slower than the amount of people actually moving to the United States or the population growth. So in the long term, real estate will always go up. Home value will always go up by a lot of means. Supplies go up, inflation is going to drive it up, demand's going to go up. Because think about it, if we keep having the population growth, it just keep going up like this, and we already have like a certain amount of homes, demand's gonna be a lot higher than supplies, and that's gonna drive the price up. You put your money in real estate right now, in the long term, you will always make your money back.
I agree. Those that bought, 10 years ago and thought, man, I'm buying at a tough time are very happy they bought. And those that are buying now will probably be happy a decade from now that they own these properties. So I'm with you. 100%
Exactly.
with you.
Yeah. So I wish, especially young people in the college, they own a property instead of just waiting 10 years later. 10 years later, they'll be owning a lot of property already.
Absolutely. And last question for me before kicking it to the group. What can we do and the listeners do to help you accomplish some of your goals for 2022?
For 2022? Well, I have a goal in 20. I have a pretty decent goal in 2022 is, expanding my short-term rental portfolios. So pretty much now it's just me, getting through all the obstacles I'm dealing with right now, and then trying to keep moving on. So hopefully by the end of this year, I'm going to be owning a lot of short-term rentals, and I'll have me manage it for me. And, we're going to make crazy money down towards the end of the year.
Hey, come on now. Count me in on that. Count me in. You heard it first here. Some short-term rental opportunities, send it to Jason and me. And,
yeah, sure.
And we're going to open it up to the group. I want to give a caveat. This thing is going to cut out in about 3 or so minutes. Just jump back in and we'll keep it going. But we'll open up to the group. Any questions for Jason?
Hi, Jason. I just want to thank you for all the information that you're giving. One question that I had for you, I know you mentioned you do a lot of out-of-state real estate investing and that you have people looking at the properties for you and sending you reports. What tools or how did you network with these individuals that are in this space? Did you use any specific platform or did you just research them and then seek them out?
Oh, I use Facebook. So I usually, real estate investor, they have a lot of Facebook group for some reason. And in Atlanta, there's the real estate Facebook group called Atlanta Real Estate Investors. I go in there and I was like, hey, I'm looking to purchase this kind of home. And all these wholesalers start, calling me, texting me. So I get to know all these people from, big wholesale. If you're in Atlanta, you may have heard of Skystones, New Westerns, Net Worth, all those people. They're big wholesalers in the Atlanta market. And then I get to know every single one of them. And then I talk to them. They send me their contractors info because they may have worked with contractor before. And then I just keep expanding. I know the contractor, I know the subcontractors.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
And then every time we go to Atlanta, I was like, hey, you want to go out, for a quick beer, that sort of thing. We get to know each other and start to build up my team over time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I haven't heard of the Atlanta Facebook group, so I may look into that too. Definitely want to meet more people.
That's when I sell and buy deals on there too. Like, let's say if I have a property that I can't finish it up, I post a deal on there. Hey, I got a deal in Oakland. Anyone want to pick it up? And then they actually sold a few deals on there already. I have a property in Oakland, and then I sold it to another investor, and she's making money on it.
Oh, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
And Jason, another question that I had, we were talking about a little bit before, but if you had to look into your crystal ball, right? And nobody's going to hold you to this, but the Fed just hiked up the rates 3/4, like 2 weeks ago. And they're saying they're going to keep doing that. I know we've been in a crazy seller's market the past year and a half, 2 years. What are you seeing from the Virginia market? And what do you think is going to happen over the next couple months with real estate?
Well, I think a lot of people are going to wait until what's going to happen next. It's like, it's the psychology, that's what the Fed want people to do. So they just going to wait until, whatever happened next. So for the next few months, the line's going to go flat. People are not going to sell because they don't know if this is a good time to sell. And people are not going to buy it because, it's interest rate. So in the next few months, and depends on the kind of news that's coming out, and then people will start making move. It's the same thing in the stock market and the cryptocurrency market. Kind of like when the line goes flat like this, either go up or go straight down. Yeah. So I think it's the same thing in real estate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that, to your point, I don't know that we're going to have a major decline. I think it's just a pause. Like, I think people are kind of taking a step back, trying to figure it out. And this is honestly one of the best times to kind of jump in, especially if you're a buyer trying to get some more properties, because you may have a slight chance to have that edge on the sellers if everybody else is paused for a second.
Exactly. Yeah. Because, when it goes down, it just kind of like a little correction, and it will pick back up. And eventually it's going to go a lot higher than what it is right now. So if there's an opportunity right now, I always, go grab it. And then in worst case scenario,